Is the Marvel Cinematic Universe doomed to fail? Stay tuned to find out. My name is Rachel.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome back to Project N.E.R.D. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the current status of the MCU. How are these new movies and shows shaping up against the first three phases of content? Is the MCU still going strong, or are we in the beginning of the end? Without further ado, let's jump right in. So we're almost at the end of Phase 4. How are we feeling about it? How does it shape up against our previous three phases? What are our thoughts?
I like that it's different. I like that I can watch She-Hulk and it feels very stylistically and tonally different from Miss Marvel or Moon Knight, or Shang-Chi or Eternals. But I don't feel like there's a through line to it, but I do like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, they don't they're all okay. I mean, I feel like everything that's come out in this phase, I mean, nothing's been spectacular. Everything's been just kind of about average in terms of quality.
I'd say most of it's average, some of it's great.
Yeah.
There's less of the great, more of the average, and a lot more... I'm a little Marvel shill, I am, Rachel. But I feel like, a lot of it's average, and a lot of people focus on how average it is, but there is good stuff in there, like the first couple episodes of Moon Knight, the first couple episodes of Miss Marvel, the first couple episodes of She-Hulk.
Yeah, but it's all kind
of
of
Shang-Chi,
separate.
all of Spider-Man.
It doesn't necessarily connect together. It's hard to see at this point it's hard to see the connecting threads. They're not as easy to pick out as they were in the previous phases.
I feel like this is phase 1.2, or wait, phase 1.2, yeah. Phase 1 2.0, whatever you want to call it. I feel like this is setting up a whole new roster of characters, just like how they set up Iron Man and Captain America and Hulk and Thor. Those were nobody characters. Shang-Chi was a nobody character before his movie came out. The Eternals were nobody characters before those movies came out. Now they're like household names now. I can go up to someone off the street and be like, hey, you know what the Eternals are? They're going to say yeah now. If I did 2 or 3 years ago, they wouldn't. Right? I feel like this is setting that up, and I think Phase 5 is going to kind of tie all these projects together really nice with a neat bow.
I see, yeah. So you're thinking...
long term, yeah.
Long term, maybe a little bit longer.
There is one issue I have with it, though, and it's the CGI looks bad. Really bad.
I don't understand the thought process behind the leaning away from practical effects. I
mean, yeah.
It's just, you can't replace it. You can't replace practical effects.
You could spray paint Tatiana Maslany instead of CGIing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nothing. You can tell. I mean, I went back and rewatched Guardians Volume 2 the other day, and I could see the difference in quality.
Even with Eternals, most of that's not a green screen. Most of that's pretty practical. The only things that really aren't are like the deviants and a couple other things. But like, when you look at Eternals and then you look at She-Hulk, or you look at Thor Love and Thunder that's got like college humor CGI, it's so bad comparatively.
It's not good. It's really not. And I want to be optimistic and say it's going to get better going forward, but
it probably won't. It probably won't.
I don't know. I really don't. That's one of the main things that worries me.
No. So Rachel, what did you think about these characters in Phase 4? Would you say they're as compelling as the original ones?
It's hard to say. I mean, I feel like this phase gets a lot more kind of picky and choosy as far as which characters you enjoy, as opposed to being able to kind of connect with all of them. I mean, I feel like in the first phase, even the characters that I didn't necessarily, love, I still felt compelled to watch what they were in and watch their solo movies. Like, if you were to ask me, who is your least favorite character out of the Avengers? Hands down, it's Iron Man.
Yeah.
Not my favorite character at all, but I love his movies. The movies are great. And the way he interacts with the other characters is great, even if I don't always necessarily like the decisions that he's made.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of these new characters that they're introducing, and I will say I can get behind the continuation stories that they're working on with WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki. I mean, those are characters that I've known since the first phase, so we've had a little bit more introduction to them. Some of these new characters, and if it kind of comes down to whether or not I actually liked the show or not, but I mean, Eternals, I can't name a single Eternal.
I can name all of them,
And
Rachel. I'll do it
I
right
know
now.
you can, yes. But I for some reason, it was just like, I can't it's hard to personally connect with every single character, partly because I feel like there's so many.
I
now.
feel like they are trying to make the movies and shows more like the comics now, where I can go into a comic book store, I can grab any character that I like. Like, let's say I love Moon Knight, I grab the Moon Knight comic, I'm going to be like, oh, cool, it's Moon Knight. I don't know what he was doing in the Avengers thing in the comic. I don't know what he was doing before this. I don't know what he's doing after this. But I'm reading it now. And I feel like the same thing is with the movies, right? I feel like I can grab any of these shows and give it to some random person and who likes, like a certain type of show. Like, if someone really likes, like, Law and Order and SVU, that sort of thing, and I give them She-Hulk, they're going to be like, oh, She-Hulk's my favorite character now. But at the same time, I can give someone who loves these old 70s karate movies, and I can be like, hey, go watch Shang-Chi. Be like, oh, I love Shang-Chi, that's my favorite superhero now. I like that variety because it's able to sort of expand that group of Marvel fans, so that instead of it being, just diehard comic book fans, it's able to open it up to a lot more people that probably wouldn't have watched these projects before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is, are they going to be able to grab those people and then keep those people interested? Because it takes a certain type of person to be able to watch something, I feel like, and if they don't understand something, just be like, it's not a big deal. I mean, so if you have to go through and watch everything in order for it to make sense to you, I don't know if people are going to be willing to devote all that time to it. You might lose some people.
Well, as a Disney shill, they actually have a solution for that. And that's this Disney Plus series called Marvel Legends, I think. And it's basically just this, like, 5-minute little tidbit of a certain character. So, like, when She-Hulk came out, they did, like, a 5-minute thing on, like, here's everything that the Hulk has done in the MCU. And it's 5 minutes of that. They'll show some footage from the movies and stuff. And they have that for about every character on there. And they'll release new ones whenever there's a project coming out that, like, correlates. And I think that that's kind of something they're doing to try to get new fans in so that they don't feel like they have to watch 30 movies and, like, 7 TV shows to understand what's going on.
So, looking forward to the future, are we excited for what is to come? We've just gotten a ton of new announcements about the next phase and the phases beyond that. So, how are we feeling? What are we thinking?
Yes and no. I feel like, I'm going to watch everything. I love like the lore of Marvel. So obviously I'm going to watch every single thing. Am I going to enjoy a lot of them? Probably not. I feel like a lot of the decisions they're making are not great ones. But there's stuff that I am excited for, like the Daredevil show. I'm like, oh, I'm hyped for that. The Captain America 4 that's rumored to have Moon Knight in it. I'm hyped for that. Blade, Midnight Suns is supposed to be coming out in like Phase 7 or something like that. I'm hyped for that. The Halloween special this October potentially. I'm excited for that kind of stuff, and I feel like they're not really mentioning a lot of that now, and I'm sure later down the line it'll get mentioned or whatever. But like, I feel like they're kind of going in a lot of different directions, which I like. But I don't like some of the directions. Like, I'm not super interested in the Cosmos side of the Marvel Universe. I'm still going to watch that stuff. But I'm not really going to get as much of a kick out of it as like watching a dude in a cape beat up a bunch of dudes in an alleyway. I think that's a lot more fun than watching Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel go to space, in my opinion. What about you?
I mean, I'm inclined to agree. I think a lot of the... a lot of the different directions that they're going, I'm not super excited for. I've always kind of enjoyed more of like the boots on the ground, down to earth type of stories. So the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Moon Knight, Daredevil, that kind of stuff. They did just announce that this new saga is going to be called the Multiverse Saga.
I like the multiverse.
No, I'm not into it. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're wrong.
Which is, again, the main thing that they're going to be focusing on. So I think we've sort of reached the point where you're going to start... People who didn't start out as avid comic book readers, which I know you are,
Love comic
and I am
books.
not. I don't really read any comic books. And so having that sort of expanded universe with the multiverse and everything, for me, it's too complicated. It's hard to follow. There's too much room for like questioning and plot holes and errors and things like that. I'm not into it at all. So I think we're gonna hit the point where people are going to latch on to one sort of genre or story more than others. And I definitely think we're gonna start seeing, we're already kind of seeing it already, start seeing some more kind of flops from the MCU. You know, I think people are going to say, well, this doesn't really interest me, and so I'm gonna skip it. And I'm curious to see how Marvel and Disney are gonna react to that sort of thing, because they're used to these huge box office successes, and I don't know if they're necessarily gonna see that again.
I don't think that's super true. I feel like, I'm sure partially true, but I also feel like at the same time, there's a lot of people like me. I'm gonna go watch the new one whenever it comes out. That's something that I like to go with my friends and like, oh, the new Marvel movie's out, let's go watch that. Or, oh, the new Marvel show's out, well, I've got nothing I'm doing today, let me go watch that, you know? Stuff like that, pretty much. And I feel like a lot of other people are just like that. These Marvel movies, a lot of families go and see these. I think, I don't think we'll get as much of that big first weekend hit that used to be. I think it's gonna be a lot more like second, third, fourth weekend is going to be the ones that make a lot more money than the opening weekend, in my opinion. I think they will make more money, just over time.
See, and that's so interesting, because I feel like the trend recently has been the opposite. I mean, Thor, Love and Thunder had a huge opening weekend and then dropped. And so did Multiverse of Madness. Same thing happened. Huge opening weekend and then it dropped, because I think people came out of it and shared their opinions, and people were like, well, the diehard fans like you are going to go see it opening weekend regardless.
Right.
But then they come out and they share their opinions, and people are going to say, well, I can wait until this comes out on Disney Plus, or I can just skip it altogether. So I think I almost disagree with you on that point. I think we're going to see pretty steady opening weekends and then sharp drops as far as box office revenue.
I think that'll depend movie to movie, but I think it could be a mix of both, yeah.
Depends on whether the movie's good, and
exactly.
we as we've stated, the content has been average, so...
Well, I know for Shang-Chi, I've seen that movie about 5 times in theaters because I'm a crazy person. Every single time I've gone to it, and I've gone to it about the span of like 2 months of it coming out. I went opening weekend, it was busy. I went with my family, it was super busy. Like 2 weekends later, I went like a month later, and it was still super busy. I think that that's kind of how the Marvel movies are going to be if they're good. And I think that, they'll get to that. But moving on. So, Rachel, do you think you're still going to be a Marvel fan in like another 10 years when this saga has concluded?
I mean, I'd like to say that I will be, but I don't think I'm gonna be as invested in it as I used to be. I mean, I can kind of feel myself fading away from it a little bit, and my interest is kind of migrating into other things, still Disney related, if you can believe that. But I mean, Marvel used to be this huge thing for me. I remember going to see Avengers Infinity War in the theaters with a group of like 20 people. And we rented out like an entire row in the theater, and just, it was an awesome time, and it was something we could all sort of do together and connect with. And maybe I'm being pessimistic, but I don't necessarily know if we're ever gonna kind of get that feeling again. I mean, I'd like to hope, but the way that I feel like the MCU is going right now and the way it's treating itself, honestly. You know, I've heard this complaint a lot, and I hate to recycle it because I always feel like people use it as a cop-out, but, you know, that every character's goofy now, you know, that no one's serious. They're getting too lighthearted, too quippy, too, you know, they don't take themselves, we're never going to get, like, that dark feeling that we got when, at the end of Infinity War, again, you know?
I personally, I think, you know, as someone that I saw the first Iron Man in theaters, I've seen every Marvel movie in theaters since opening night, opening weekend, every single movie. I'm still gonna watch these, because, you know, I'm invested. I've, you know, invested my time into it, and I enjoy some of the
this much of your life to it, so you might as well keep going.
12 years of my life? I think I have to now. Disney's in my pocket, or I'm in Disney's pocket.
Yeah.
But I feel like it all kind of stems on what Phase 5, and I'd say the remainder of Phase 4, if that's good. Because if I'm able to enjoy the space stuff that the Marvels does and whatnot, and if I'm able to get a bigger enjoyment than I already do out of the multiverse stuff, or if I'm able, and if the street stuff actually it feels street level and doesn't turn into a giant crocodile and a giant bird fighting each other on the pyramids in Giza when it's supposed to be a mental health story, you know, I feel like then I'm going to be able to enjoy it a lot more and it's going to keep going for me. But I feel like currently I don't have the same sort of feeling when I go to see a movie. When I went to go see Thor, I didn't see it with a whole lot of people. And I wasn't like feeling it, you know? But when I went to go see Black Widow, I was hyped. When I went to go see Eternals, I was hyped. No Way Home, Shang-Chi, all those I was really excited for. So I think if they're able to bounce back and I'm able to, when I go see Black Panther 2, to get like really hyped for it, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And based on the first trailer, I'm pretty hyped about it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. And I think if they're able to keep that and coast on it, I think they'll be able to get another 10, 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, you said earlier, this Phase 4 feels a lot like Phase 1. And it's hard to go from essentially Phase 3 back to Phase 1. Because, you know, you feel a little bit bored and it feels a little bit tedious. And so I think for the future, they need that big thing to kind of reel everybody back in and say, all right, it's game time again. Here we go. We need another, I've said this for a few months now, we need another Thanos level villain to sort of get people invested again, bring all these stories back together in the way that they were originally. And they seem to be hinting that will be happening soon. So hopefully that will be kind of the pivot and turnaround point. And I definitely think that they have a lot more to offer. Whether it's good will be the question.
Alright, yeah, I can get behind that. Interesting.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're new to our channel, please leave a like and subscribe, hitting that notification bell to make sure that you stay up to date on all of our newest content. And leave us a comment letting us know what your current thoughts on the MCU are. How do you feel about it? Do you think they can turn it around, or will this potentially be their last dying breaths?
Comment about how wrong Rachel is, guys. I'm Sam.
I'm Rachel.
And this was Project N.E.R.D.